I'm out of the trailer. If you have a 2021 Ford Ranger and you're looking for a way to get a little bit more storage out of your Ranger and you want something that's going to be relatively easy to install, then the Rhino Rack Roof Rack is going to be a pretty good option for you. So let's check it out. What I like about a roof rack is a few things. So what's nice about it is it's going to allow you to carry those extra long items, because while we do have a bed, sometimes that can still be limiting, because if you have anything like lumber, ladders, or kayaks, putting it back there just isn't going to be ideal. What's also great about it is instead of relying on a small trailer or a hitch cargo basket, putting it on your roof is also going to save you more space, keeping everything in just one footprint. It's also important to check you have the right type of roof. And the Ford Ranger really only has one type for the most part, but sometimes you might run into something else. So you need to make sure you have a naked roof option. And a naked roof option isn't going to have any type of rails on it. A flush option will have some type of rail that you can grab on, and then a raised roof option, you'll be able to get your hand underneath that rail. I also just recommend plugging in your vehicle's information into our fit guide to make sure you find the right one for you. But let's just focus on the kit that we have today, and it's going to come in three parts. It's going to have our 49-inch Rhino-Rack Vortex crossbar on top. We're going to have the tower underneath, and then we're going to have the fit kit that attaches to your roof. But let's focus on the crossbar. The shape of this crossbar is going to be an arrow style, and what that means is it's going to have a taper end to either side that's going to help it be more aerodynamic, and that's going to help reduce wind noise. Something else that's going to help reduce wind noise is going to be this weather strip up top. That's also going to keep out any debris or water from getting into this channel. And the important reason why you want that clear is if you want to use any T-channel accessories. T-channel accessories are ideal if you run into any situations where you have a clamped on accessory that just won't wrap around a certain section. Anywhere where, like where the tower is sitting, you won't be able to get your clamp on accessories there. Now I will say this weather strip is just one that you have to cut down to size to work around your gear. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more premium, I'd recommend checking out the Thule Roof Rack. What's nice about that weather strip is actually built in, so you don't have to worry about cutting anything down to size. We'll also have this end cap. This end cap is just going to have a plastic lock core on the end of it, and it's going to help deter theft, but if you want even more security, you can actually get that replaced with a metal locking core. We're going to have a T-channel underneath too, and what that's going to be used for is to connect your tower to your crossbar. And if you look inside of here, I already removed our end cap. The nice thing about this is it does have a metal locking core, so you will have that extra security right here. And this is a relatively simple layout. So we're just going to have this bolt that connects to your tower that's going to hold this clamp. And this clamp is grabbing onto your gutter right here, so it's keeping everything cinched into place. Now I will say this is a fixed mounting location. Now it's not going to be as fixed as some other options out there where you actually have to drill or really put a bolt through a certain hole in your roof. This you could move maybe an inch to the back or front if you really needed to. I still don't recommend it, but just know you will have a little bit of play with this when it comes to installing it sometimes. And with that clamp, that's also going to be part of your fit kit. Your fit kit's going to come in two pieces. So it'll be that clamp itself, and we're going to have this rubber pad underneath. And right now we're getting a really good fit from this. And what I mean by that is we don't have any gaps, it's relatively flush, so we know we're having a secure fit. Because it's doing two things for us. One, is giving us a pretty nice look on top of your roof. You want to make sure you don't have any gaps. And if you did have some gaps, sometimes that can create additional wind noise or some whistling that can occur. Right now we don't have to worry about that. And it's going to give us more peace of mind since it is flush, ensuring that we do have a good hold on top of our roof. And the way it's going to sit up here, if we get some measurements, we can get the total height. And right now that's going to be sitting a little bit over 5 inches. So that's a little bit high compared to some other options out there. What I'd recommend doing is just taking the total height of your vehicle, your crossbars, and anything on top of there, just so you know if you can make it underneath a spot. The spot to really think about would be a garage. And if we get the distance underneath the crossbar, that's going to be a little bit over 3 inches. And why that's important is if you have any really bulky clamps, they should work. Now, if you do have a sunroof on your roof, then you might need to consider that too, because if that opens up and expands up, it could make contact with something. Just make sure you keep an eye on it. And then for the crossbar spread, this is going to be set to 31.5 inches. Like I said earlier, this is going to be at fixed points. Yours might be a little bit off if maybe your installation is just a little bit off, but just make sure it's as flush as possible. And that's important to know because you need to make sure that spread is going to work with whatever gear you have. Something else to consider is how it's sitting up here. And what I mean by that is the angle of our crossbars. Since they are at a slight angle, that's just because of the shape of our roof. But the good thing is both bars are parallel, so we shouldn't have any fitment issues. The biggest thing is if you have any extra long items, they might be at a slight angle, and that's going to be more of a cosmetic thing than anything. And as for how much room we have for the overhang, this is going to be a little bit more close to the tower, so it might be more of a clean finish. The big obstacle you might face is if you have any clamp-on accessories, a lot won't work with this amount of space. You might be able to get a ski carrier at the very end of here, but that's going to be a big maybe. But that's one of the benefits of having this T-channel up top. So if you are running into any issues like that and you want your gear to be as close as possible to the side so it's just easier to access, then you still have that ability. And this will have a pretty decent weight capacity. And what's going to be the limiting factor is most likely going to be your roof. So what I'd recommend doing is finding that in your owner's manual and then going from the lowest rated component. Now, in my opinion, I think this is a solid choice for a roof rack. I don't think it looks bad at all on a roof. And I think it's a great value option in the realm of these more custom fit roof racks. Now, if you're looking for a slightly better look and a just as easy of an installation, then I'd recommend the Thule Roof Rack. That one is personally my favorite aesthetic-wise on top of your roof, but it's going to be the most premium one, and it's going to be at a little bit more of a premium price range. So if you're looking to save a little bit and you still want that easy installation, I think this will be perfect for you. Now, if you are curious about that installation, just stay tuned. We'll walk you through the process. To begin the installation, I like to lay everything out. So furthest away from me, we are going to have our crossbar. Next to that, we're going to have the towers and their bases, and on our other side, we're going to have our fit kit. That's going to consist of these two pads and these clamps. You'll have this little measurement tab to make sure everything's even on both sides, and we're going to have this included tool. Not only is it going to be an Allen key, but we'll have one to take off your end caps. And we're going to have our included key so we can lock everything up. What I recommend grabbing is just an additional tape measure just so you can make sure everything's even. We already have our front crossbar installed, but it's going to be the same process for either one. Now there will be a few differences when it comes to measurements, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. But right now, I want to install our bases to our rubber fit kit. The way this is going to work is we're going to have a lot of tabs on here, and this is just going to kind of just plug and play into each other. Now there's a few things we want to make sure of before we get this all cinched together. So there's going to be a couple indicators on this. One of the indicators is going to be an arrow on that plastic base. And right now I have this facing out. And what I mean by that, we want to make sure when we install this, that this isn't facing towards the center of your vehicle. The second thing we want to check is the rubber base or fit kit itself. On here, we're going to have an arrow. It might be kind of hard to see, but we want to make sure this is facing forward towards the front of your vehicle. I got my crossbar in front of me now, and what I'm going to do is grab this little blue key, and I'm going to remove my end cap. The best way I like to do this is just simply face it like this. That key's going to sit in place, and I can remove it. I'm going to grab my key in a second, but what we're going to be doing at this point is putting our tower on. The way this is going to work is we got this little metal block here at the top of it, and sometimes it's best to loosen this up before you get it in place. If you loosen it up a bit, you have this head right here. This will give you a little bit more room to work with. And the way this is going to seat into place is we're going to have this T-channel right here. That metal block is going to go into it, and we want to make sure that we're putting this on in the right orientation, making sure that this bolt is facing out. We got both towers in place and the end caps back on. And what I want to do from here is grab this strip. This strip is going to have this measuring tape on it. And what I'm going to do is figure out where this tower needs to sit. You can actually find this measurement in your instructions. And the best way to do that is get that measurement, cut it down where you need it to sit, and try it out. Now I found that this actually needs to be a little bit more in than what we originally thought. So I'm going to try it like that, but I'd recommend sticking to your instructions first and then going from there accordingly. Once you got that measurement, we can tighten this down, which you can grab that Allen key and go from here. Now you'll notice I don't have my strip in place. That's because this is just one we keep in the studio. So we're going to need this for a lot of different lengths, but you can install yours. We can start putting it on top of our roof. Before we get it up there, we want to make sure it's in the right orientation. So like I said earlier, we're going to have those arrows on those rubber pads, and we want to make sure those are facing forward. Once we've done that, I'm just going to roughly place this on top of my roof. This doesn't have to be perfect quite yet, because later on I'm going to use some measurements from my instructions to get the exact location. Your instructions are going to have two measurements. There's going to have an A and B. Your A measurement is going to be the distance from the top of your windshield to the front of your front crossbar. You're going to check on both sides to make sure it's even and square it off. And then you can get the measurement for your rear crossbar, which is going to be B. You're just going to go from the center of your front crossbar to the center of the rear one to make sure it's squared off too. The second thing I like to check is how this is sitting up here. And what I mean by that is I want to make sure this base is looking pretty good and is flush. And right now I'm not a big fan of this. And that's because this isn't cinched up against this corner, so it's going to give me a little bit less peace of mind. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Sometimes this can sit a little bit too wide, so we'll have to adjust it later on. We'll just have to bring these towers in maybe by a 1/2 inch, a 1/4 inch. Just kind of take it slow until you get this into the right spot you want it to. Now this is what the fit we want is, just like this. Well, it's more flush against this corner. Once you got that, then we can start installing our clamps. To do that, you're going to remove this bolt at the very back of it. You can use your tool to do this. It should be loose enough just to do with your hand. Once you get that out, we can just open up our door and install our clamps. Now, you're going to have 2 sets of these. You just need to make sure you reference a number on the inside of it that's going to match the right locations on your roof. Once you've done that, we're going to reinstall this bolt back into that hole in the back side of it. Now the best way I find to do this is to use your tool. Just kind of hold it in place like that. And it's going to be a little bit tricky sometimes, but you're just going to guide that bolt through that hole on your clamp, through that nut on the back side or inside your tower. We just want to get this started, and once that's grabbing on, then we can kind of test our fit. Sometimes you might run into this case where this clamp is just sitting on top rather than around your gutter. What I find is the best solution for that is to just pull on here a little bit and try to slide that in, then push it back into the right location. And you just repeat that on the other side. And with both clamps installed, we're going to start tightening this down. Now the trick to this is just to tighten each side a little bit at a time. And the reason being, you want to make sure you don't tighten this up too much on one side because it's going to start to pull, and that's not going to give you an even fit. Now you're eventually going to reach the point, after going back and forth a few times, where this is going to start to kind of bend at the end. And you can tell if this straightens out all the way, then this is fully tightened down. And what we can do from here is kind of give it a good shake test to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. And if it feels pretty good, then you can put your end caps back on. And with all 4 of your end caps in place, just make sure you lock them up. And then that will pretty much do it for our look at the installation and some of the features of the Rhino Rack Roof Rack on top of our 2021 Ford Ranger. I'm Matt. Thanks for watching.